Hugh Ferris with all the puns there. You're listening to Newsday on the BBC World Service. Now, how to plan military intervention to oust al-Qaeda-backed Islamic forces who've taken control of the north of Mali will be under discussion in a one-week conference that opens today in Bamako. In attendance, experts from the African Union, ECOWAS, that's the Economic Community for West African States, and EU representatives. But what shape should such intervention take, and what forces are at play that need to be considered? Well, I spoke to Rudolph Atala, Research Fellow at the Atlantic Council and CEO of White Mountain Research.
The situation in northern Mali is definitely one that requires a lot of attention. I mean, for years I've talked about the potential expansion of AQIM, and now with the various kidnappings, AQIM has made a significant amount of money to fund its activities and growth from the ransom payments.
And isn't it a case that, in fact, when you had the original secession of the north from the rest of Mali, that that was a source of divide between some of those who are now breaking away because they weren't all speaking with one voice?
Sure, it's a multi-layered problem set. So essentially the Tuareg have fought for 50 plus years now to have some of their grievances dealt with. And unfortunately, Bamako has never really dealt them a good hand. So they took matters into their own hands and took control of the north. But that was hijacked by members of AQIM with a very different agenda. Now what they have is you have essentially the Tuareg who have been pushed out, and then that vacuum has been taken over or completely controlled by Islamists. I mean, you hear all these groups like Mujao, and you hear about Ansar ad-Din. At the end of the day, the back end of that is AQIM.
Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, for those who are still unsure of the acronym. What about joining the forces of African Union and those from ECOWAS, in addition with support from the European Union? Do you think they'll have even more success, perhaps, with this united force, as opposed to even more success than, say, the AMISOM troops fighting Al-Qaeda-supported militants in Somalia?
When you compare the two, I think they're apples and oranges. First of all, Somalia is a mono-ethnic country. Its causes and problems are very different. Shabab has nowhere near the experience that AQIM has. Foreign fighters that have joined AQIM have had, a lot of experience fighting Western troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. They are seasoned fighters. They have tremendous capabilities. Shabab was nowhere near that. The other problem that you have in Mali is multi-ethnic, and there are some deep-seated issues that have not been dealt with over the years, primarily racism between North and South. This is why you have these indiscriminate killings going on by Malian soldiers of innocent Tuareg. As we speak, one happened just last Tuesday. You can deploy a force, you can try to subdue the Islamists, but the underlying causes still need to be addressed. An ECOWAS force, whether AU is involved or whatnot, should also include in it some type of reconciliation right now with the MNLA, which makes up, the bulk of the Tuaregs, because these are the people that know the North. That way, when you do move a force forward to the north, the Tuareg would serve as a force multiplier. 2, they can serve as scouts because they know the terrain very, very well. 3, you've already addressed some of the root causes, at least up front. Obviously, you're not going to solve them all in one go, but at least you've started the dialogue and discussions. And that way you're moving towards a more holistic solution versus let's conquer the North with really no real long-term plans of what we're going to do with the internal issues of the country.
That was Rudolph Atala, who's a research fellow with the Atlantic Council.
I'll just catch up for a moment.